The UNSC has adopted a resolution calling for Hamas to agree to a three-phase ceasefire proposal outlined by US President Joe Biden. And for the same, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in West Asia. This is his 8th trip to West Asia. What are the chances of a breakthrough in the Gaza ceasefire talks? And are there signs of Biden's increasing frustration towards Netanyahu? To talk about this and much more, we're now being joined by Dov Zakheim, former Under-Secretary of Defense in George W. Bush administration and currently Senior Advisor at Center for Strategic Studies. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Dov.
Thank you.
Now, like I mentioned, Blinken is in West Asia for the 8th time since the war broke out, with the push for Israel and Hamas to accept the ceasefire deal. We've seen stalled ceasefire deals in the past. How do you see the talks this time around?
Well, as I understand it, and I'm in Jerusalem right now, the Hamas people are demanding two things that may or may not be able to happen. In addition to whatever they demanded before, they now seem to be demanding that if there's a ceasefire, the United States and Egypt have to guarantee it. Now, maybe the United States would guarantee a ceasefire. Obviously, Hamas doesn't trust the Israelis. They're at war with them. But I don't know if Egypt would do it. Remember, Hamas is part of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood was overthrown by General Secy and the military. And it's not at all clear to me that they would be ready right now to guarantee anything for Hamas. So that creates a problem, I think, for Secretary of State Blinken, who obviously is working very, very hard on this more than just about anything else to get a ceasefire. President Biden said the Israelis are ready to accept. Mr. Netanyahu has fiddled a little bit and sort of not exactly accepted, but we think that he would. At least that's the impression. But the Hamas people are holding out. And as long as they do, of course, the Israelis will keep attacking them.
Right, Dov, apart from the sticking points that you've listed from the Hamas side, I mean, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been very clear and adamant that he wants the elimination of Hamas for the ceasefire deal to move forward. And just yesterday, Benny Gantz also resigned from the war cabinet. How do you see that complicating the ceasefire deal talks further?
Well, it does. Gantz resigned out of frustration. He also said that Netanyahu was making some decisions without consulting him. And remember, Gantz was part of this very, very small inner war cabinet. There are only 3 of them with 2 observers. Gantz was one of the 3. And so for Netanyahu to make decisions without Gantz being involved is frankly quite surprising, and one can understand why Gantz left. Of course, it complicates matters even more, because now with Gantz, and not just Gantz, by the way, Eisenkot, General Eisenkot, who was a former chief of staff and was an observer on this inner cabinet, he also left because he's with Gantz. That pretty much leaves Netanyahu with the right wing. The right wing, the extreme right-wingers, they don't want to stop at all. Some of them talk about kicking the Arabs out of Gaza entirely. And so there's new pressures on Netanyahu from his right wing. At the same time, of course, it complicates his relations with the United States because, at least in Washington, Gantz was seen as a moderating influence. Well, there is no more moderating influence. And both Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, who's an extreme right-winger, and this man, Ben-Gvir, who's an extreme right-winger, they are now seem to have the upper hand, and they are persona non grata in Washington. So this whole Gantz business, plus the impasse that already exists, creates huge obstacles for reaching a ceasefire.
Right, Dov, you spoke of how Israel's ties with the US is in quite slippery slope right now. And according to reports, US is also mulling a secret deal with Hamas, clearly bypassing Israel to free American hostages. What is your assessment and take of that report, and how perhaps it will impact US and Israel ties?
Well, the Israelis need the United States. We need Israel, but I think Israel needs us more. So a fraying of ties with Washington is not a good thing for Israel. If Washington cut it, I don't think Washington cut a secret deal with Hamas for the very simple reason that the Israelis would know about it, even if we didn't want them to know about it. Their intelligence is good enough to know. The real question is, what would be promising Hamas that we've already not promised? And other than a guarantee that Hamas is looking for, and again, will Hamas drop the demand that Egypt give a guarantee? We just don't know. Biden has made it clear that he thinks Israel has accepted the American proposal, and he's put the pressure on Hamas. What kind of secret deal? I simply don't know, and it would be explosive in the United States to make a secret deal with a terrorist, with what we call a terrorist organization, during an election year would, I think, seriously compromise Mr. Biden's chances for election. So I'm not sure that the secret deal is as secret as people think. And again, is Hamas prepared to have any kind of deal other than Mr. Sinwar's extreme demands? It's not at all clear.
Right. Thank you so much, Dov, for taking our time and joining us here on WION with Insights.
Well, thank you very much for having me.